Hello, friends. Welcome to the Logistics of Logistics podcast. My name is Joe Lynch. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's topic is blind spots and bottlenecks, unmasking the hidden enemies of supply chain with my friend Briana Birkholz. How's it going, Briana?
Oh, it's going just great, Joe. How are you?
Doing great. So, Briana, please introduce yourself and your company and where you're calling from today.
Sounds great. So, Briana Birkholz, well done on the pronunciation, Joe. I am calling from the lovely Twin Cities, so Minneapolis, Minnesota, and representing SPS Commerce as the VP of Product Management for our logistics market segment.
So, what does SPS Commerce do?
Great question. So we are really about powering the connections that move the world of commerce forward. You can think of us as being at the center of retail supply chain, where we have a unique and intimate understanding really of the reality that retailers and that suppliers and of course logistics providers face every day. So we provide EDI solutions, but really anything within that data digitization within the supply chain.
Yeah, we'll get into more details about this as we get into the discussion, but this can be a little abstract, but it is such a huge business problem. And I think I've run into it myself where you think, oh, we're going to kick off this new 3PL on this date, or we're going to start providing this new retailer with this CPG product. And then you find out your systems don't talk. And I know someone will say EDI, APIs, whatever you're saying, that's great. But ultimately, there's a sales guy who's saying, oh my God, I made a prediction that we were going to start having revenue this quarter. I already spent my bonus money in my head. And I've experienced it. Ops teams run into it, and it can be, tell me if I exaggerate, it can be 60, 90, 120-day delays on projects.
Absolutely. The complexity is just really astounding because, those logistics providers need to create strong relationships with their customers, be able to, meet their needs, but also the retailer channels. There's a lot of complexities there. Well, of course, they're trying to improve their operational efficiency as well.
Yep. So, in a nutshell, what problem are you solving for your customers, and who are your customers?
Yeah, so our customers are logistics providers, as I mentioned, as well as suppliers or brands and manufacturers and, of course, retailers. But at the heart of it, we're simplifying the logistics provider's ability to perform their role and proactively keep them in sync with their customers. So we take a full service approach to that. That includes, guidance, support, technology, to quickly and easily onboard their customers and serve them on an ongoing basis while they can continue to improve that efficiency.
Yep. And today we got the title Blind Spots and Bottlenecks, but we had another title, which is the connected ecosystem. And we all love to say, oh, we have this connected ecosystem that helps you do blank, and the flow and all that. But the reality sometimes is just the opposite. Again, that's why we kind of picked the negative today, because I think, it is, and we also have hidden enemy in there, because this is so often missed. I can tell you, I was on a consulting project where we missed it and everybody felt foolish.
Right. And there's a lot of things to miss, right? It's that understanding the requirements, setting up, configuring, testing, just validating that the data flow is working as expected for all parties. So there's a lot of things that can be missed in that process.
Yeah, I recommended a friend, introduced him to you guys. And I remember we were talking, he owns a freight brokerage, and he said, oh my God, I hate this. We have a customer, and as soon as we're going to bring this customer on, they're like anxious. We're anxious because we don't make money till they're a customer. And he said, and my ops team just keeps delaying. And it was their outside vendor that was not getting it done. And
well, thanks for the referral, Joe.
You're most welcome. But what's interesting to me is there's a number of you companies out there. It's you guys fly under the radar. You're not. It's like the stars are the transportation management systems and the visibility solutions. But none of it works if they're not connected.
Exactly. They have to talk together, right? So we may not be that primary interface in all cases, but it's really about simplifying that data flow, especially, these companies have, 3PL warehouses, as you know, have limited resources. They're maybe still trying to figure out their systems, their WMS, right? And so they want to be able to serve all of their customers, all of those channels, really with one connection. And that's where SPS comes into play.
Yeah. When you talk about those big retailers or big manufacturer, those are the ones who started using EDI first. I don't know what year EDI came out, but that was the year that the automakers started using it and the retailers. So when you say, hey, connect to our modern new API, blah, 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 they're like, no, we'll give you our EDI and you'll figure it
EDI
out.
is very powerful. It meets all the needs and complex requirements, and it's fairly straightforward, right? So while there can be a lot of things to miss in that, and obviously understanding all those unique requirements for every retailer channel is complex. The protocol, the EDI itself is not particularly obtuse to understand. So it is something that is really powerful.
Yep. By the way, I don't think it's on our list, but I'm going to put it on our list if you don't mind. I want to talk about cybersecurity at the end of this too, because I feel like cybersecurity has become such a concern for the people we're working with. And I feel like if you're a warehousing company or you're a broker or trucking company, the last thing you need to be is the person who brought
exactly
the systems down.
Yes, 100%. Yes, it is top of mind. It is absolutely top of mind for the supply chain in general. But to your point, a lot of the specific players, they don't want to be in the news.
Right. So, Briana, tell us a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? Some career highlights before you joined the mothership that is SPS Commerce.
Yes, and what a journey it's been. So I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison and got a degree in engineering. So I think you could say I really started out thinking about efficiencies and systems, right? Industrial engineering and systems engineering goes hand in hand. From really day one. And after a short stint at Kimberly-Clark in Neenah, Wisconsin, I moved to the Twin Cities, where I've been for the last, 22 years now in total, which is crazy. So I'm definitely a Minnesotan at this point.
Minnesota and Wisconsin have that interesting relationship. I think you're in state schools, like Minnesota people can go to Wisconsin schools.
Reciprocity. Yep, exactly, which is great. We're definitely neighbors, friendly neighbors, which is awesome.
You got the cold weather in common.
Yes, we understand. We understand the challenges of that for sure. So in 2008, after some time at an e-commerce outsourcing company, I joined SPS Commerce. And, honestly, I thought I'd stay just for a couple years to kind of see what this tech meets supply chain world was all about. But I moved through various leadership opportunities in customer success and technology and strategy execution. And I've been able to really take on some interesting challenges. I've been able to lead global teams. I get to build a lot of things, right? Build teams, build systems, a lot of relationships, build strategy. A number of the roles that I've had here at SPS in the last 16 years have been new to the company because we have experienced such tremendous growth. And with growth comes those opportunities, which has been really fun. So that's definitely why I've stayed here. And now in the last year, I've really returned to my kind of efficiency and systems roots with a product twist, as I've been able to focus on logistics. And my new role really brings me the opportunity to help solve tough problems for 3PL warehouses and transportation providers. I can bring our vision to execution, and I can still optimize, which is something that is really core to what I enjoy doing. You can ask my family that, probably much to their annoyance. So this time it's really about optimizing our customer supply chains. As the title suggests, getting rid of those bottlenecks and those blind spots. Exactly.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when I came, I'm an automotive guy originally, and I came to to logistics in 2009, 2010. I was a little third-party logistics company, and we had a great transportation management system. That was why I joined, and great business. But we had a lot of data entry, a lot of clerk work, and I remember saying to some friends, they go, "What do you think of, what's the difference now that you're working outside of automotive?" I go, "They have like they're way behind on the technology stuff. So there people are using like an ERP at the at the big manufacturer you work with and a TMS at the 3PL, but they're not connected. And I think in the last 15 years, we've just seen the need to connect. Now, back then it was like, I remember my team receiving emails with Excel spreadsheets, and they would take it and just enter it first thing in the morning. Our teams would enter a whole bunch of stuff into our TMS. And we had also a lot of customers who we'd say, hey, you can access our transportation management system and put the information right in there. And they'd say, no, I'll just send an email. Or we'll just call in our shipments. And
yeah, we still see it. We absolutely still see it. There's that inconsistent data exchange, really. And it's challenging because, in a world like supply chain and retail supply chain, it demands speed, it demands precision, and there's human error in a lot of those things, right? Misinterpretation and missed SLAs. I mean, there's a lot of challenges in that.
And everybody you talk to is trying to do more with less. So the idea that you have a clerk sitting there, and how long are you going to be able to keep that clerk happy? You hired somebody and their first job out of college is to sit there and type, and they're looking for a job the entire time they're doing it. So we've had, I would say in the last 15 years, a lot of connectivity happen. But the last mile of this is tough. And I think, and please correct me if I go astray, because I'm going to speak in layman's terms. Before we had these integrations that were all very manual, and so they were all one-off. So you might call an expert like Briana and say, hey, when you're done with your current project in 6 weeks, would you consider connecting us to our new customer? And it might take 10 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it took, and it cost a fortune. and I remember somebody saying to me, if we can find somebody to connect these systems, it's going to cost a fortune and it's not going to happen for months. And I was like, just like, if you're on the ops team, you're like, nothing delays us months. and if you're on the revenue team, you are explaining to the boss what happened to those 2 quarters of income that is no longer there.
Exactly. It's that delay of cash flow, really, because that speed to onboarding is speed to revenue for these players. So it's really, really important.
Yep. So that's the first thing I had written down. With this topic, I have to leave the shallow end where I prefer to stay. So the first thing I want to talk about is inconsistent time to revenue. And you said it is a silent growth killer. Please elaborate.
Yeah, I mean, the onboarding timelines for a trading partner, as I mentioned, delays that cash flow. It can also damage relationships, right? Because as a third-party warehouse, you've said yes to a brand, right? You said, yes, I can receive your inventory. I can pick, pack, and ship on your behalf. I'm going to meet or exceed your expectations, but also the expectations of your customers. And they expect a lot, and that doesn't come lightly. As we mentioned, there's a lot of complexities here, even though EDI can be simple. Understanding all of those unique data requirements is really challenging, and being able to test that and ensure that it's working. And so, those warehouses have to manage multiple customers and their customer networks simultaneously. So think of it almost as I like to think of it as a multiplier effect, right? The more customers that a warehouse has, which is great, the more complex the onboarding and management of that all becomes, because it's not just that initial onboarding, it's making sure that we're staying in sync and continuing to update based on changing requirements. And that's where we've seen tremendous success is stepping in and solving as a network company, essentially, for those requirements and complexities.
So how long could it take for let's just say they're not using SPS and they're trying to do it internally, or there's using some one-off connections?
Yeah. I mean, we're really seeing timelines cutting, in terms of onboarding from months to weeks or even days, right? So being that full service provider and partner, we're designing solutions that are really trying to exceed everyone's expectations, especially when we talk about speed to onboarding. We're streamlining the process. We have a pre-built retailer network. We're onboarding those customers faster. We're minimizing errors, and ultimately that runs more efficiently. So we're really making a dramatic impact for our customers. And I actually have a couple examples if you'd love me to share.
Yeah, you had, I think this is an interesting case study. Please talk about that case study.
Yeah, so the first one I'd love to highlight is Woods Distribution. So it's a family-owned and operated 3PL warehousing, transportation, and logistics business in Texas, in Fort Worth. And their challenge was they had a customer that changed their ERP and required EDI. So Woods had to figure out a plan pretty quick and adjust their processes to retain that customer. So they looked to adopt EDI with SPS as a partner, and that allowed them to reallocate some of their key personnel and see time savings on top of just that compliance from a customer or from a kind of supply chain network perspective. So their outcome was being able to onboard 50 new customers within the first 6 months without any disruption to their operations. So that's really, I think, a testament to their capabilities, the partnership that they built with SPS and our joint capabilities, and ultimately really led to new avenues of expansion for Woods by connecting them as a Texas-based business with thousands of other supply chain collaborators all over the world. So really, really proud of that one.
So please correct me if I go astray. You could get a programmer who could connect one system to another. It's integrations. We used to talk about integrations all the time. We don't so much anymore. Am I right to say that SPS is more of a platform where you're already connected to a lot of manufacturers, CPGs, retailers, 3PLs?
Exactly. When I talk about SPS as, we're a technology company, we're a supply chain company, we're also a network company. And so those pre-built connections that we continue to maintain and really know, in some cases better than the retailers do themselves, allows us to be a platform where, again, we're bringing all of those customers and all of those channels to one connection on behalf of our customers that we serve.
Yes. And I've done a lot of episodes on cybersecurity, and by no means an expert, but I pick up bits and pieces. And one of the things people have said, the techies always say, is you need good hygiene, you need good best practices. And I always think the old integrations, well, people are still doing it that way, the one-offs. You're not necessarily having the best practices. You are leaving yourself vulnerable. And I think it's just a matter of time before the large CPGs, the large retailers, the large manufacturers say, you will be on these platforms because we trust these platforms, because they are able to spend to meet our best practices, to be completely as safe as you can be. And by the way, when we talk about cybersecurity, I always say it's when, not if, because some of the best companies in the world have been hacked. It can happen, but I think it's how do you respond to it? And you definitely don't want to be the low hanging fruit. So a company like SPS, people are like, no, I'm just not going to bother.
Yeah, exactly. You want to minimize those vulnerabilities and those ways in. And so, you're talking about kind of the multi-tenant nature, the platform nature of what we do versus those point-to-point connections. And I think having that combined with a really robust security posture is something that really does insulate companies from risk. And like you said, you don't want to be the slowest gazelle in the herd. So we like to aim a little higher than that, but I think it's really, really important not to let those bad actors in through some of those doors.
I think there's also if I'll mention, I don't know whether you guys work with them or not. I don't care. But if I'm working with a Target or General Motors or Kraft Heinz, I want to say that we are working with SPS Commerce and you're already connected there, as opposed to, hey, I got this guy, I found him on Fiverr and he's really good.
Yeah, you're not trying to get just the the cheap fly-by-night company
And
that
go,
can technically do it.
Hold up. And I can see, I don't know if they're there yet, but I can see, I'm from automotive, and I always know there was always the bar was getting higher and higher who you could work with. And I remember they would say, you can't work with these guys anymore. And it wasn't like it was a bad company. It's just small because they weren't global. And
you have to have the resources.
They
You
pick
have
best
to,
practice.
exactly. Yes. You have to, when we like to say, whether it's security or other, SLAs in terms of data exchange and transmission, or even, just best practices and understanding of the retail supply chain. We aim to be a leader in all of those areas and really provide on behalf of our customers. We serve customers that are, those small brands that are just starting out and just emerging, all the way up to big enterprise. And whether that's retailers or suppliers or third-party logistics companies, manufacturers. So we need to serve them all and meet them where they are and do the best that we can on their behalf, while also helping to really share and take a leadership stance with them in terms of what is needed to be successful in this space.
We've got another case study that I want to talk to you about, which is Arcadia Cold. And this is, again, the inconsistent time to revenue. Is it going to take me 2 months or 6 months to get connected?
Exactly. So I wanted to highlight Arcadia because, Arcadia, for those who don't know, they're a cold storage really innovator in the food industry. And we work and partner with a lot of third-party warehouses that are facing high growth projections, which is outstanding for them, right? Like that's incredible. But they need to be able to increase their automation and standardization to be able to onboard quickly, to be able to reduce their manual processes when they're onboarding new customers. And through their partnership with SPS, they were able to reduce their onboarding time by 60%. Really, really outstanding. It allowed them to establish themselves as a leader in the market. And that was great by offering, their combination of leading edge technology and standout customer service. And they've been able to then show potential clients that they're committed to forward-thinking supply chain solutions. And they've been able to secure new business, new contracts with frozen goods leaders as a direct result. So, in addition to those very established players that are, faced with some sort of technology change or challenge within their kind of trading partner network, or those emerging players that are looking to grow, I think we've really demonstrated that we're a provider and a partner for them. Yeah,
and when you say they're getting that done, save 60%, that's time. Another way to measure that is revenue.
Exactly.
Because that is, 60% sounds great on anything operational, but it sounds a lot better when you put it into dollars.
Yes, exactly. That business case really lands for sure for their leadership and certainly for their continued growth projections.
Yeah. And again, I think all software is sold on, we're going to make more money on it, that we're going to save money on it. And it definitely happens. But again, the details matter, and the details are, how does it connect?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it needs to land.
So there's another thing I want to talk to you about. I wrote these down because, again, I normally have to stay in the shallow end on this stuff. And it's the idea that there's no standards, no control, the cost of inconsistent order intake. What does that even mean?
Yeah. I mean, Joe, I think you mentioned this earlier, where sometimes even if you're allowing access, let's say to a portal or a system, sometimes there's still a preference to take orders via phone, or, hey, I'll send you this email or this PDF. And, it does lead to errors. It does lead to missed SLAs. There's a quickness and a, accuracy here that is just imperative. And so SPS, through EDI as one mechanism, but through, really a variety of meeting people where they are, meeting players where they are, we standardize those formats across all partners. So our customers' teams can really do what they do best. They're either, doing their warehousing operations, or they're the transportation provider. They can work smarter at that, not harder at standardizing those connections.
Right. And so this inconsistent order intake speaks to something that isn't happening via the system. It is happening via email or manual.
In many cases,
manual intake.
absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So again, another case study I wrote down here that, it's Symbia.
Yes. Yeah. Symbia Logistics. So they're a family-owned critical player in the 3PL space, offering a high-quality suite of services for a tremendous amount of time. I think it's over, excuse me, over 30 years. And their challenge was they were looking for new solutions to streamline their omni-channel data exchange experience. They wanted to simplify their supply chain. They wanted to promote visibility into their data. They wanted to increase the customer onboarding speed that we talked about. And that really required for them, in this case, a new WMS solution, and then a partner and a plan to be able to execute that. And so they chose DePasco. So this was actually really an interesting joint case study with Symbia and DePasco. And we were able to provide one point of connection, as I mentioned earlier, and that led to a more stable supply chain for Symbia. So they had no more like orders falling off, better communication, and visibility into their supply chain. So, as I think I said earlier, customers are using SPS not just for EDI, but to simplify their data flow. And this is definitely a case where I think we were able to do that for Symbia.
Yep. When I talk to people in the warehousing business or warehousing management, I always say there was never a sleepier business than that until a decade ago. All of a sudden, it was when e-commerce hit. All of a sudden, warehousing had to wake up. If you had walked through a warehouse 20 years ago, and I did, they're always dusty. There's stuff there from World War II on the shelves. There's not a lot of organization. And now we see warehouse management systems and so many drones and so much. Was at Manifest, I was amazed at what's going on in warehouses now. But when I ask people in the business, what percentage of warehousing companies have one location? I always hear about 50%. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. I just spoke to a friend of mine. He has one location and they're killing it. But it probably means you don't have a huge tech team. That's sometimes the problem. Even really well-established logistics companies say we don't necessarily have the tech in-house. And so when you get that challenge where somebody says, hey, we need that integration, you're outsourcing. And if you're outsourcing to one guy and taking a big chance. I mean,
we want to be that the differentiator for us is that full service provider.
Want to be a partner.
Yeah, exactly. That partner on an ongoing basis throughout that entire journey.
No matter what you're doing in this business, if you're a shipper and you're selecting a 3PL, you have to say, that 3PL is going to be my partner. We're going to ride and die. And tech, you need tech partners increasingly, visibility partners. A lot of people have outsourcing partners that, in Philippines or Colombia or wherever. You got to partner up. Nobody wants to be the guy who tried to develop his own software and also and tried to do all the things that experts can do better on the outside. And this is a perfect example because you don't have that work every single day.
Right. Yes. That's not your core competency, right? If it was, then you would be probably in a different business. So it's trying to find that leader that you can back to trust, finding a leader that understands this business and can guide you through the process and be there at every step of the journey, I think is really, really imperative.
So when we talk about EDI, we're talking about this is the message you can get from the retailer, from the manufacturer that you're working with. And if you're a 3PL, you want to be able to connect to it on behalf of your CPG or whoever you're working with. And EDI is not EDI. It's not the same everywhere you go. So one retailer might be very different than a manufacturer might be different. And they all have, so there is no, here's the standard for EDI. Please explain.
You are, oh, it's music to my ears that you understand that, Joe. EDI is so different depending on what type of player you're talking about, what specific, entity or, retailer, for example, and even within a retailer, what order management or fulfillment model you're talking about, right? So there's so many requirements and they're constantly changing So EDI is not EDI is not EDI, and it can be really challenging. And compliance, ultimately for the warehouse to be able to achieve, again, with their customer and all of those retailer channels is really hard. So understanding all of the different rules and requirements for packing slips and shipping labels, all the routing guides, the advanced ship notice timing. There's so many pieces of that puzzle. And again, that's not necessarily a core competency of a logistics provider. So if they can partner with someone like SPS, we can maintain that on their behalf. We know that. We know those requirements, and we can be able to handle all of those unique challenges and those unique needs for every single retailer channel.
Well, yeah. So when somebody says, "Hey, we want to connect to XYZ company," and we've got a guy who's struggling to do it, you're like, we do it every week. Like, your guy's trying to figure out how to do it the first time. We do it every week. And I always say the same thing, no matter what you're doing in this business, you don't want partners who are learning on your dime.
No. And you don't want to do it trial and error, right? Because that cost of non-compliance can be really challenging, whether that's, chargebacks, strained relationships, lost shelf space. I mean, there's so many things that can happen as a result of not being compliant. And so that, not to mention just not getting, an A with your retailer. So that matters to those brands. So we really help to meet those requirements the first time with that automation, that document generation, that validation. And again, we have that pre-built network of retailers. So we have the ability to, really know what's going on each and every day in regards to changes and things like that may be happening.
Yep. I did a podcast not too long ago, and it was on the CPG supply chain. And it was talking about some of the real challenges that they're facing. So if you think of CPGs, again, Procter & Gamble, Unilever, Nestle, Kraft
Kimberly Clark.
Yep, Kimberly Clark. And they used to be just brands. Now they tend to be portfolios, companies where they are always getting rid of one company that's got old in the tooth and bringing in typically an organic or a premium brand. So even before COVID, there was a lot of inflation in pricing for the CPGs. And so the retailers were very upset. This isn't very generalized, but in general, the CPGs were very angry about the cost increase. And well, since COVID, everything is way too expensive. It feels like half the conversations I have with friends and family is, went to this restaurant and all we got was, and it cost, I hear that all the time now. And I went to the grocery store and I bought 3 things and it was this much. I think we're all much more sensitive to price right now. And during COVID, some brands excelled and were able to stay on the shelves. Others weren't. We always hear on time and in full, OTIF. The big retailers are, they're low margin businesses, and they are getting more and more demanding for the on time and in full, because if you don't have the product on the shelf, nobody makes money.
Exactly.
And I always say the fine you might have got because you weren't on time and in full is nothing compared to the empty shelf and the customer trying your competitor. Well, what we're talking about today is we expected you to be on our shelves January 1st, and now you're telling us it's going to be May 1st. That's starting the relationship on the wrong foot.
Exactly.
And if you're, I don't know exactly how they're making the decisions, but the big grocery stores, the Walmarts, the Costco's, I live here in the Midwest, so we have Meijer. Those brands have to be always evaluating how much money are we making with them. And if they're not on the shelves, if they're a pain in the ass, we can't get them to onboard their brands efficiently, effectively, you're going to be gone.
Yes, you're spot on. Those buying organizations, whether it's a retailer or a grocer, or distributor, they have the leverage and the incentive to have, that OTIF, and they want to be able to choose partners that they can trust to be able to do that.
I say it all the time on my podcast. some of the best stores out there have very few SKUs. Trader Joe's, which has done really well, very few SKUs, and a lot of those are
Costco, frankly,
Yep.
is
I
actually
love Costco. It's my
fewer.
favorite.
Yeah, fewer than
So
you
is
think.
Aldi.
Yeah,
Aldi has
right.
very few SKUs. Aldi's the fastest growing grocery store, very few SKUs. So it's not easy to get on their shelves. And Trader Joe's, I just heard they're 70-80% are private label. So it's really hard to get into Trader Joe's. So the idea that you're going to squander this huge opportunity if you're a new brand and you say, oh, we finally got the opportunity to be at Whole Foods, and you go, yeah, we're gonna take a chance on this new guy to connect the dots for us, connect the digital dots. Nope, that's not a good decision.
Exactly. My recommendation is place those risky bets elsewhere, because that's not where you want to do it.
Yep. Anyway, before I forget, I will put a link. I'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile, a link to your website, and any of the links you and your go-to-market team give me, I'll put those in the show notes. Anyway, I want to try and wrap this up. God knows I'll try to summarize what we talked about. So I'm talking to my friend Briana Birkholz, and we're talking about blind spots and bottlenecks, unmasking the hidden enemies of supply chain. We all have these very visible supply chain challenges. You notice when a truck doesn't get there. You notice when there's not enough on the shelf. This is hidden. But this is so key. And again, I've been on projects where we thought the project was all ready to go and it was delayed months because we didn't know how to connect the digital dots. And I know that's the technical term. Look it up, kids. So anyway, we talked about a few things. So we talked about, first off, this inconsistent time to revenue. If I'm late 3 months on every one of my new customers, it's huge money. And in these times, you do not want that problem. There's enough problems with the world right now. So that's the silent killer. You gave us a few case studies, how you guys have helped 3PLs get loaded faster. And then we talked about just no standards, no control, the cost of inconsistent order intake. You don't want to be using manual entry for anything. You want to be able to use the systems. This isn't just about connecting to EDI. This is about being more efficient with your systems. And again, I think we're all very comfortable. We thought TMS or WMS was the silver bullet. We wouldn't need anything else after we got that. But that didn't get us all the connectivity we need. And that, by the way, I should mention, we all want more data. If you don't have connections, you don't have data. So moving from one system to another, manually or otherwise, you lose those data points. And last but not least, all the retailers, all the manufacturers, everybody using EDI is got their own brand of EDI, which is unfortunate, makes it a lot harder. But what this kind of comes down to is the old manual integrations that we used to talk about it's old fashioned now. Now you're so much better off to work with an SPS who says we are already connected to everybody. And if you want to connect to fill in the blank retailer, manufacturer, warehousing company, they're probably already connected to SPS. And this is a little opinion piece here, but I think also at some point, those big brands are going to say you must work with SPS or the equivalent. I don't know that there is an equivalent, but it makes no sense to me that they wouldn't mandate that. If I was there, I would say, nope, I picked a platform and I want all of my partners to connect that way because it makes no sense not to. There's that cybersecurity risk that we talked about. I don't want integrations that are one-off because they're risky. Anyway, enough of my blather. Put a big old bow on this one, Briana.
Yes. Well, first of all, hats off. That was exceptional. You can join our marketing team. But thank you for that, Joe. Yeah, I mean, you encapsulated it very well. We, SPS Commerce, Retail Solutions, automate that exchange of data about products, about inventory, orders, shipments, payments, sales for those players, whether that's retailers, suppliers or brands, manufacturers, and of course, logistics providers. We're proud to say that we have more than 120,000 companies
Whoa.
that around the globe that rely on SPS to make their trading partner relationships more collaborative and more profitable. And I think we touched on both of those elements of collaboration and, of course, the underlying need for profitability there. So it's all about, all customers, all channels, and one connection. We feel we are the leader there as a network company that really knows retail supply chain and can be that full service partner.
Wow. So 120,000 companies worldwide
rely on SPS. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So there's a very good chance if somebody calls and says, oh God, I have to connect to this, you go, no problem. Even if it's somewhat, we mentioned some big brands out there, some big retailers, big manufacturers, but there's a very good chance that you're connected to the tier ones and the tier twos and the tier threes.
Yes. We've seen a lot, especially in North America.
Yeah. Well, it's somebody has to kind of connect these systems because we all have these great systems. Again, I always thought when I saw the transportation management system and the warehouse management system, that was the silver bullet. That's all we needed. Now there's dozens of systems connecting into those.
Yes, it's very powerful, right, within the four walls, but being able to connect to those outside parties is really fundamental for the optimization.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit about implementation. So if somebody's listening to my podcast, and by the way, they always should be doing that, and they say, oh, I want to work with SPS. What does that look like once they're talking to you guys?
Yeah, so they would work with our sales team, depending on what type of entity they are. So whether they're a buying organization or a brand or a logistics provider, either warehouse or transportation, they would work with our sales team. They would make sure that they're understanding what we offer and making sure that we understand really the scope of what they need to be able to set them up with the right, set them up with the right solution. And then they will work with a implementation or onboarding team throughout their journey to be able to configure and test and validate, make sure they're comfortable. Really, there's an education piece there too. So we will get them set up with those trading partner connections and partner with them again throughout their entire customer journey, because as we know, there are also a lot of companies, warehouses out there that are adding, removing customers over time. And so we want to be able to be that partner for them in all cases and throughout their life cycle.
So do you onboard somebody before they need a connection? Is that how that works? Or are you doing it usually?
Typically it's typically when they have an actual connection that they want to work with, because that's really where that power comes in. We can understand, of course, whatever, system that they're using and things like that. There's value in that. But I think the real power comes into that connectivity and being able to understand who are those connections that they need to work with, and we'll be able to help facilitate all of that on their behalf.
How do they pay? I mean, without getting into too much detail, how do they pay you? Is this like a software as a service, or how does that work?
Yep, there's a subscription fee. So we're a software as a service company. So when I said earlier, we're a technology company, but also a network company and a supply chain company, all kind of rolled into one. So there is a subscription fee. We're really, again, as that full service provider, looking to partner with them on an ongoing basis. And so for all of our offerings, regardless of what type of customer we're working with, we're going to be able to be that provider for their duration.
I like it. So again, I'll make sure I put a link to your LinkedIn profile, link to your website, any other links you and your marketing team give me, I'll put those in the show notes. What conferences will we see you and the fine folks from SPS Commerce at?
We are at a number of conferences throughout the year, but coming up very soon is the IWLA Annual Convention and Expo for 3PL providers and warehouses, and that's May 4th through 6th in Tucson, Arizona. So I will be there along with a number of my team and folks from SPS Commerce. So would love for you, those listeners, to stop by our booth. Come say hi to us.
Yeah, and so that is IWLA. What does that stand for?
Oh gosh, you're testing
it's warehouse.
Me now on acronyms. Yeah, exactly.
I know warehouse.
We'll have to see. This is where you say, "Go look it up, friends."
I mean, yes, I've heard it. People say it. That's why I asked. So it's probably international warehousing. something.
Logistics.
Yeah,
maybe?
there it is. Yeah.
We're guessing at this point.
Yeah. But it's in Tucson. If you get to Tucson, yeah. So, well, that's great. And it's conference season. So everybody's heading off to conferences and you're going to the desert.
We're going to Arizona. But yes, and listeners also, as you mentioned, can find more information about our product offerings. These case studies I talked about are actually on our website as well.
Give me a link and I'll put them in there.
spscommerce.com, and you'll have the link.
Yeah, put those links and we can check them out. Again, I think anyone who has been down this trail and suffered a setback I think it's an easy sell to me because I've experienced it. It is a horrible thing when you think we're all set. And I think we have customers now that are very demanding. The retailers, the Amazons of the world, they now expect us to be precision. There's no messing around anymore. And I think they're probably measuring you on how successfully you got set up. And if they're going, oh yeah, these guys start off on a bad foot by taking 4 months longer than we planned to get on our shelves. Nobody likes that.
No, and it has to work the first time.
Yep, exactly. Well, Briana, thank you so much for taking the time. I know this is such a difficult topic to talk about, but it's one of the bigger ones. Again, this is a hidden enemy of the supply chain. And I think so many people go, oh yeah, the IT guys get it. This is not something your normal IT guys get. You can talk to your TMS guys.
This is about the business, running the business. Exactly. Yes.
This is one of those that's fairly obscure. And I think you can have a TMS and those guys can be brilliant. You have a WMS, you can have all the systems, but if you can't connect to your customers, you don't have a business.
You got it.
Anyway, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me, Joe. I appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure. And thank all of you for listening to my podcast. Your support's very much appreciated. Until next time, onward and upward. You have been listening to the Logistics of Logistics podcast, where we engage with leaders in the logistics and supply chain community. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave us a nice review on Apple or Spotify or wherever else you listen. Also, please check out our videos on YouTube and connect with us on LinkedIn. We're very big on LinkedIn. And you can also reach us on the logisticsoflogistics.com, our website.